Happy Thursday. Hope you guys are well. I'm hanging in here. And before I forget, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with your favorite feminist. I said it once in one of my other videos, and well, I like saying it. So yeah, share this with your favorite feminist. But seriously, like, share it with the women in your life if you feel like they're reachable. I feel like we got to go one at a time. Anyway, this topic gets covered on many different platforms, people's podcasts. You see this question on the Whatever podcast a lot because it reveals so much about women, their expectations, and their spoiled brattiness. Here's what it is. When two single people, go out on a date, let's say it's a first date, who pays? Now, since dating was invented, which it hasn't been that long, it really hasn't been that long. Sorry, there's a fly in here. I had the door open and that was a mistake. Anyway, since dating was invented somewhere in the 20th century, because before that was more like courtship. It wasn't, I'm going to pay for a dinner and then, etc. Modern dating is modern. Anyway, the man paid. The man would pay for the date. And the idea was the woman was at least a lady, that she was not dating a bunch of other people, that dating meant dating. It didn't mean hanky-panky, It's obviously changed. But the thing is that with all this equality that the women have demanded, and they say they've fought for, give me a break. They didn't fight for anything. They complained, and it was given to them by, Simps R Us. And ever since that, it's like, well, they're equal. Well, they don't think they are, right? They want all this equality, but not only when it serves them. They only want to be equal on the things that they perceive that men have it so much better, which, by the way, newsflash, men do not have it better. They never have. Men die in wars. Men are the providers and the protectors. They do all the risky stuff. Women, and I'm talking about in the West, by and large, what I refer to a lot on this channel as Christendom, men have been the shield and women have been the protected class. But they don't know that. Modern women don't know that. They think they've been the oppressed class. They believe all this propaganda and brainwashing that women have been so oppressed in the West. It's just been terrible for them. And they believe this stupid pay gap, which that's not a thing. Men earn more because they earn more. They have jobs where they get paid more. They just do. They work longer hours. But even so, to make up this gap, women are getting promoted more when they don't deserve it. They're getting hired more when they didn't earn it. Their jobs, and I say jobs because a lot of them are like completely unnecessary human resources. They're like made up jobs. Reminds me of something you would like give a kid that you were sort of playing pretend. It reminds me a lot of, I picture a little 4-year-old boy, for example, and let's say, that was the day that, if I believed in like government school, let's say that was the day that preschool went to visit the firehouse and they all got plastic, like fire chief hats or whatever. And the little boy comes home and it's like, I'm a fireman now. It's official, blah, 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 right? And you're like, yes, you are. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's kind of what I feel like some of the lady folk might be doing with some of these jobs. I'm not saying there aren't there. Look, I have a physical therapist, and I love her. She's great. She's a genius at what she does. That's true. And it's an important, necessary thing. We need physical therapists. However, it's tricky because, her kids probably want her more at home. So I think to myself, well, what about these talents and things that these women have? Well, if you had a real family and community, you would have different people with different strengths in that family, and then the women would be caring for the people in that family. So that would be something that that woman would be good at in her community, and etc. So that's a whole other story. If you're new here, I'm very like, we need to get back to Little House on the Prairie, and the Amish people had it right, because at first I started thinking, oh, the 1950s, back to then. I'm like, no, that was not good. That was not good for men. Women were not pulling their weight. Anyway, speaking of pulling their weight, they won't even pay for half a meal. And we want to know, well, this is kind of very new. So for Gen Z, though, Gen Z is like 15 to 30-year-olds ish. You know how the generations, they disagree on which one starts where, but that's basically the age group of Gen Z right now. And they're really arguing about this, because think about being that age. Say you're 25 right now, and all you've ever been taught is that men and women are equal, they can do the same things, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't make any sense in their brains why one of the genders would be responsible for all of the paying for the dates. So the New York Times had something to say about it. And I love the New York Times, and this is a bit of sarcasm, because you can count on them to be the New York Times. You can count on them to lean left. You can count on them to have that whole bias. And we want to know, what does the mainstream have to say about this stuff? For Gen Z, an age-old question: who pays for dates? Not funny for Gen Z, an age-old question. Don't you love when like young people are like, oh, it's been forever? You're like, you're brand new. Anyway, young people tend to lean more liberal, sorry, it's hard to get that word out, liberal on a range of issues pertaining to relationship norms. But when it comes to dating, the idea that men should pay still prevails in hetero courtship. This was published February 10th, 2024, and it was updated 3 days later, the day before Valentine's Day. I guess people needed her, as if anybody really reads it besides, people like me. All right, this is by, forgive me, it's a guy. His name is Santal Nerkar, Nerkar. I don't know. Santal Nerkar went on 11 dates while working on this story, paying for 5 and splitting 6. During a recent dinner at a cozy bar in Upper Manhattan, I was confronted with an age-old question about gender norms. Over bowls of ramen and sips of gin cocktails, my date and I got into a debate. Who should pay for dates? Awkward conversation beforehand, but my date, a 27-year-old woman I matched with on Hinge, said gender equality didn't mean men and women should pay the same when they went out. Women, she said, earn less than men in the workplace, spend more time getting ready for outings, and pay more for reproductive care. I'm sorry, I skim this article. I skim these things before I read them with you because I want to have the same experience, same as when we're reading fairy tales on Sunday. Reproductive care? That's a new one. Wow, they'll put anything in there. They'll just be like, I feel like it's when you're doing your taxes and you're like, what else can I write off? When the date ended, we split the bill, but our discussion was emblematic of a tension in modern dating. At work and on social media, where young people spend much of their personal time, they like to emphasize equity and equality. When it comes to romance and courtship, young people, specifically women and men in hetero relationships, seem to be following the same dating rules their parents and older generations grew up learning. Well, of course the women are, because it benefits them. That is what is old as time. not gender norms and la 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 la. What he's missing here is that what is old as time is women will definitely do what benefits them. This is just an objective observation, and also bearing the fact that I have a woman brain. Women are good at optimizing, getting. Women were not made to create resources. We were made in such a way that we can, what I mean is we don't produce resources. What we are good at, which is scary but obvious, what we are good at is getting them from men. Because in the wild, without all this, infrastructure and society and everything, we depend on the men for hunting, for this and that, unless we're going to, forage enough berries all while being pregnant and nursing and all the rest of it. Just try to think about the world without all of these buildings and electricity and everything. Think about how we are bare bones nature. And we're created to be a helpmeet, not get the resources ourselves. We are supposed to provide value to the person who does provide the resources. That part's been forgotten. Like, oh well. We're very choosy with what kind of traditions we stick with. Contemporary research, popular culture, and conversations I had with more than a dozen young Americans suggest that a long-standing norm still holds true. Men tend to foot the bill more than women do on dates, and there seems to be an expectation that they should. Well, that's, of course, there's an expectation. Women want to put that pressure on men and make them feel like it's expected, because the women know that a lot of the men want something physical out of the relationship. And a lot of times that's all women think men want, is just the physical. So yeah, it's transactional. It's very rare they'll admit it, because they're going to say reproductive care and it takes longer for me to get ready and whatever other baloney she said. The paying for the first date dance. Lola, we need to not dig on our bed. By the way, please hit like whenever Lola distracts me, which she will because she hasn't had her dinner yet. Reminds me to ask you guys to like the video. Did I say like the channel? I don't know. Whatever. Do the YouTube-y things, please. Some progressive defenders of the norm cite the persistent gender wage gap and the fact that women pay more for reproductive products and apparel than men, and that they spend more time preparing for dates to comport with societal norms. Kala Lundahl lives in New York City and works at a recruiting firm. She typically matches with people for dates through apps like Hinge, with the total cost of the date, usually over drinks, coming to around $80. On the first date, Ms. Lundahl, 24, always offers to split the check, but expects the man to pay and has encountered resistance when she offers to pay. Wait a minute. So she always offers to split the check, but expects the man to pay. She's playing a game right there. Right there. It's like, well, if you expect him to pay, why are you offering to split it? Because you want him to think that you're generous and fair and that you're all the strong and independent, but at the same time, you have these expectations. Giant red flag, okay? This type of thinking is the problem with the young women. I understand there's a problem with this. This doesn't just happen with young women because they're eating the same propaganda. Millennial women could be the same. You might see some of the same stuff with the Gen X women. But yeah, absolutely. Like, well, I always offer to split it, but I expect him to pay. And this woman, guarantee you, she would not see any contradiction in that at all. Where are the principles? Here we go, more games. Ready? Buckle up, more games. Ms. Lundahl said that if the date was going well, they might continue on to a second location, usually a cheaper place where she was more likely to pay. So as it's going along, she's definitely grading you. It's not the same way as when men are like, is this going well? No, she's keeping like, what is he worth? What is he? Games. On a second date, she would be more insistent on paying the entire check or splitting it. Ms. Lindahl's reasoning comes from her belief that the person who did the asking out, usually the man, should pay for the date, and that the person who made more money, also usually the man, should cough up. Lovely way to say it. I understand the idea of when two parties decide, when one party, whether it's like business people or friends or whatever, when one party asks the other party, hey, would you like to go to lunch? Generally speaking, manners-wise, the person who asks has the obligation to pay, because generally that will be the person that says, let's go here, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. So etiquette says that that person should pay. But the women are using that, in my opinion, the women are using that piece of etiquette to say, no, this applies here. But the problem with it is that the women are demanding in our equal society, remember, this is equal. It's not the way I think it should be, but they're calling for it. So they want to, equal rights, equal lefts. So if they want to have it equal, but they're saying also that, well, the man should also ask. These women are not approaching men. These women are not asking the men out. They are putting that responsibility on the man. So that's manipulative in and of itself. Like, well, the man asks, and as if it's like, well, it's either way. Some people, no, you're expecting the man to ask, and therefore you're using that to expect him to pay. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. A couple of guys get a little stiff when I offer to pay, Ms. Lindahl said. You can tell they're not comfortable with that idea because they don't know what you really want. That's why. I don't think it's because it's you paying or not paying. It's because they don't know what it means. They don't know if you're trying to say, oh, we're just friends, or there's nothing that's going to happen after this, etc. They're not, lady, it's again, another excuse. Well, when I offer to pay, it makes him uncomfortable. So that's why I don't. It's for him. It's for him that I won't offer to pay. Oh, you're so sweet. Wait, maybe I've got this all wrong. These women are just really sweet and just always thinking about your feelings. That was sarcasm. I say that because sometimes I get people from other countries and they don't always understand when I am being sarcastic, which must be rough on this channel. I'm getting mad. Scott Bowen, a 24-year-old accountant in Charlotte, North Carolina, said he always paid for drinks, meals, and coffees on dates. Usually that winds up being $70 to $100 per outing. God. The conversation over who pays usually lasts a split second. From the time the waiter sets down the check to when Mr. Bowen reaches over and says, I'll grab that, he said. When Mr. Bowen was growing up, his parents made it clear to him that he should pay for dates when taking a woman out. He acknowledged that he wanted to see the status quo change to be more of an even split. Yet he said he was uncomfortable bringing up the subject at all during dates. Of course. Oh, man. Our conversation was one of the rare times he had spoken about the issue with another person. Goodness gracious. See, this is the problem too. Like he's 24, so his parents are like, you got to be a gentleman. Shut up. Those people have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what feminism has done to this country. They have no idea. And they're telling their son, they're leading him into the lion's den. They are, this is how so many of you guys ended up like this, with parents like, well, just be a gentleman. It's fine if she has a career. She can have a career. Da, 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 da. You have to, you're equals. And then, then she, blows it all up. This is bad. Somebody needs to get to Scott Bowen. Anyway, in LGBTQ relationships, who pays for dates has less to do with gender norms and more with specific relationship dynamics. Yes, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about male-female, so whatever. Brendan Foley, a government worker in Washington, D.C., said that in his experience dating men, the check was usually split. When one person paid, it was often the older man or the person who was understood to make more money. But the discussion of money during dates doesn't bother him. So you're saying like the alpha would pay? Like the... Anyway. Yeah. Because men are actually equals. The fact that women want men to pay just proves that like they're not equals. They just want to eat. They just want the benefits. Quote, I think there are more honest and straightforward conversations than the dance in straight relationships, Mr. Foley, 24, said. The persistent tradition of men paying. Shanhong Luo, a professor in Fayetteville State University, studies the factors behind attraction between romantic partners, including the norms that govern relationships. In a paper published in 2023 in Psychological Reports, a peer-reviewed journal, Dr. Luo and a team of researchers surveyed 552 hetero college students in Wilmington, North Carolina, and asked them whether they expected men or women to pay for dates and whether they, as a man or a woman, typically paid more. The researchers found that young men paid for all or most of the dates, around 90% of the time. Wow. I mean, it hasn't changed at all. While women paid only about 2%. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. I was like, where's the other percent? They split around 8% of the time. And don't forget, some people lie. On subsequent dates, splitting the check was more common, though men still paid a majority of the time, while women rarely did. Nearly 80% of men expected that they would pay on the first date, while just over half of women, 55%, expected men to pay. Well, some of them are lying. I mean, they are. Sometimes on some of these, like when they take a poll, I'm like, you're lying. You women are not saying you expect them to pay, but you do. You totally do. They totally do. Surprisingly, views on gender norms didn't make much of a difference. On average, both men and women in the sample expected the man to pay, whether they had more traditional views of gender roles or more progressive ones. Quote, the findings strongly showed that the traditional pattern is still there. End quote, Dr. Luo said. The persistent tradition of men paying for women might seem like a harmless artifact, but in a relationship, such acts don't exist in a vacuum. Wow, where are we going with this? I can't wait to find out where we're going with this. Psychologists differentiate between two forms of sexism. Hostile sexism, defined by beliefs like women are inferior to men, and benevolent sexism, defined by beliefs like it's men's duty to protect women, but the latter can give way to the former. So it's hostile if you believe that women are inferior to men. And it's good if you believe that it's men's duty to protect women. What is the woman's duty? Can someone somewhere tell me? Okay, men have these duties. What are the duties of the women? they don't, I guess that would be hostile. Pardon, I'm getting hostile. Wow. Okay. The notion, quote, the notion of chivalry is couched in very positive terms, end quote, said Campbell Leeper, a professor of psychology at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Quote, but over time, if people are stuck in these roles, that comes at a cost, end quote. Okay. Campbell Leeper, I'm gonna guess that that's a guy. And here's where we're at. We have got too many imps with an S in front of it enabling these women to demand traditional roles from men and provide nothing in return. The notion of chivalry is couched in a very positive terms. So yeah, we don't like this stuff, but we want this stuff. And that's positive. And that's what this guy says. So no. And I'm so glad so many of you are like, no, the only way to win is not to play. Forget this, forget you, I'm done. Because this is baloney. You guys don't have to do this. You should not be expected to provide all this traditional like value and all this stuff and expectations and stuff when the women are not giving anything. They have no duties, no responsibility. They bring no value. They want to be equals. They basically want to be roommates with you that have hanky-panky. That's what they want. They don't want to be a wife. They don't want to be... All right. Let's see what the Dr. Imp with an S in the front says. In a 2016 study, Dr. Leeper and his co-author, Alexa Painter, I feel like we've heard of her before. Alexa Painter surveyed undergraduate students in California, asking them how they rated a number of traditional courtship gestures, including men paying for dates. A majority of both young men and women said men should pay for dates. But for men, the association between that view and more hostile views toward women was particularly strong. Oh, okay. Oh, God, I'm getting mad now. I thought we'll just read a New York Times article and it'll be good and this will be nice. And it won't affect me neurologically. If you're new here, I have multiple sclerosis and I know you can't tell from here to here, but look, waist down and internally pain. And anyway, no. We're in it now. So they're saying if the men are traditional in the good way, it leads to the hostile stuff too. So you're saying that if they provide this, they might expect something? How dare you? How dare you? Oh my God, it's getting more British than whatever she is. Oh my God. I lost my spot because I had a little mini stroke, not really, but like I cannot believe this person. Did I just like turn the page and I don't even, yep, I did. Asking them how they rated a number of traditional courtship gestures, including men paying for dates. A majority of both, here's where I had my little stroke because they'll just say it, including the enablers. That's what we're from here on out going to refer to the imps with an S in front, enablers. A majority of young men and women said men should pay for dates, but for men, the association between that view and more hostile views, how dare you, toward women was particularly strong. Dr. Leeper, who has been teaching a class on gender development for more than 30 years, said his students today were more liberal on a range of issues pertaining to gender identity, sexuality, and norms governing relationships. But his students often defend the principle behind men paying for dates or say they hadn't even thought how it was connected to sexism. Well, of course you wouldn't think of that because, well, it serves you as a woman to just have stuff paid for you. Like, why would you question that? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say. That's kind of surprising to them and something they haven't really thought about before, Dr. Leeper said. I doubt it's true for the men. I doubt that's true for the men, but I bet it's true for the women. Part of the reason the norm may persist in young people is that dates are inherently awkward, Dr. Luo said. Even for young people who may hold a steadfast commitment to financial independence, whether a man or a woman, the pressure of an age-old norm may kick in. Regardless of what you believe in, you'll do what the norm says you do. Actually, you'll do what serves you. And the women want to get stuff paid for them, and the men have more of a physical drive for hanky-panky release. And it is normal nowadays to, do that on dates. It's not what I think should happen, but, we're not discussing the Amish or Little House on the Prairie right now. Easier as relationships deepen. Kent Barnhill said he paid for around 80% of the dates he went on, usually with people he had met on dating apps. Mr. Barnhill, 27, identifies as a feminist, so we have another enabler, and is politically progressive, but he said his upbringing in a wealthy conservative household in South Florida has shaped his practice of insisting on paying for dates, particularly early on in relationships. I can't with that guy. Quote, on the first date, I always establish beforehand that I want to pay, said Mr. Barnhill, a data analyst in the Washington, D.C. public school system. Quote, the fact I'm paying more does not bother me. I know. I can feel what you guys are thinking right now. You're like, well, that's good. That's good. Well, you've got money, so good for you. But that's not most people. So that means that's not most men. You're not helping the cause, Mr. Barnhill. Zoe Miller, 23, on the other hand, grew up in a liberal household in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. One experience on a date in college shaped her insistence on splitting the bill. While her date was in the restroom, a waiter came by and asked Ms. Miller how the two wanted to pay. She said she wanted to split the bill, so the waiter came back with 2 checks. When Ms. Miller's date came back, he was furious. He wanted to pay for the date. Now, she said, I absolutely refuse not to split the check. He was furious. It's $500. I'll take $500. Things that never happened, Alex. Sure. Ms. Miller said Mr. Barnhill started date. Oh, the two of them are together. Oh, fantastic. Let's get into it. Ms. Miller and Mr. Barnhill started dating after meeting through a mutual friend. Okay, so Mr. Barnhill, he always insists on paying because he grew up conservative, but now he's a feminist. Zoe grew up progressive, and because she had that experience that never happened, she always insists on splitting. So we're going to find out what happened with these two. Even if these are made up people, I'm enjoying the story. We know from Sundays, even made up stories have a lot of truth. In fact, sometimes more. So the two of them started dating after meeting through a mutual friend. The couple recently enjoyed a meal at a fine dining Italian restaurant in the Mount Vernon neighborhood of Washington, and Mr. Barnhill had paid. I always insist on paying, Zoe had said. It's like, oh, he paid. Oh my God, that's funny. Ms. Miller initially found it hard to swallow when Mr. Barnhill would pay the entire check. But a combination of a difference in incomes. She has had fewer shifts at her job at a smoothie shop, and viewing the gesture as genuine rather than an expression of power warmed her to the idea. Since that outing, they've tried to split their dates using the app Splitwise. They've tried to split their dates. I bet you it's like, well, I'll pay for the drinks. I'll get the tip. Just the tip. I had to, you guys. I know that's not like me, but It's whatever behooves them. It's their opportunists. Miss Zoe Miller here has found a way to actually make it a feminist thing to allow him to pay because she's oppressed as a woman and doesn't make as much at the smoothie shop. He's a data analyst. He worked to become a data analyst. She works at a smoothie shop. You don't make less because you're oppressed, lady. Oh boy. Wow. All right. Once two people make it past the initial awkward courtship, navigating the trickiness of date financing tends to be easier. I love how they are changing the name, the definition of courtship. Apparently now in dating, there's courtship, and then what it's just like, now you're just like regular dating. So courtship is what the beginning dates is. Courtship before you do the hanky panky. They've totally changed the meaning of courtship. I'm always going to notice when they change the meaning of words because that's how they change how you think. And they normalize things that should not be normalized. So we need to pay attention to words and how they're changing their definitions and connotations. Andrew Chukler and Miranda Zhang are a married couple. Why would they have the same last name? That's oppressive. Are a married couple in Los Angeles who met in college. Going out for expensive dates was not financially feasible for them, so they opted for what college couples often do, spending time over cafeteria meals and during club events. That sounds way better. Mr. Tukler and Ms. Zhang, both 26, said the early experience of a relationship not defined by money had helped steel them for the challenges of talking about and spending money. The couple split their finances, but when the couple split their finances, but when it comes to dates, they alternate who pays. They're married, right? Didn't it just say they were married? Okay. Verb tense is tricky. Mr. Tukler said he enjoyed it as an act of service. Even taking the extra step to tell the waiter that what she'll be having. Oh, that sounds hostile. That sounds like hostile chivalry or whatever they called it. Hostile. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's not. I think it's very sweet and very, but I'm way different. I'm shocked that he would order for her, that she's gonna, you know what? That's gonna come up in the divorce later. He even told me what I had to eat for dinner. He was controlling me. Everything will be used against you in a family court of law later. Something she used to love and was so sweet and Later, oh my God, he's gaslighting me. He's a narcissistic abuser. Okay, so he would tell the waiter what she'll be having. Ms. Zhang said she appreciated the gesture and enjoyed returning the favor. So are you trying to tell me right now that they would go out to eat and she would pay and she would order for him because ew? No, like ew. Really? Again, things that never happened. But if it did happen, can you imagine like that guy? Oh, it's just disgusting. To me personally, it is just disgusting to think of men in that kind of submissive, weak role. It just isn't right. It's just not right. Whereas I think for the woman, she absolutely should be in that role. I think it's natural and it requires strength to be in that role, to say, nope, I'm not in charge. Nope, I'm going to defer. Nope, I might disagree, but that doesn't mean I need to say it in the way that I feel like I want to say it. Maybe I just say it in a nice way, or I wait. You don't have to give your, arguing opinion to everything he says all the time. And I know that a lot of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, you can't get a word in edgewise because everything's got to be pointed out. That's wrong. And I know that's what they do. All right. Oh, that was it. That ended like a Grimm fairy tale. It's like, oh, that's just a version of this article. It appeared in print on Valentine's Day. Of course it did. So the end is Ms. Zhang said she appreciated the gesture and enjoyed returning the favor. I think they added that sentence. I don't think that that's real at all. I think of the whole thing, the two most unbelievable things in this article are that Ms. Zhang returned the favor and ordered for him. And the second most unbelievable thing is right here in the beginning, where they said that he went on 11 dates because I know how hard it is for average men to get dates. It's really hard. So the fact that he, for an article, could get 11 and 6 of those times got her to split the date, I have to call baloney on that because I just don't think it's just not that easy for a guy to get 11 dates. It's just not that easy. I need to know more details about, well, did you say, hi, I'm writing a story for the New York Times? Oh yeah, I guess it's on Hinge. I'm so old. I'm like, and this isn't even a phone anymore. Okay. I'm like, hi, I'm doing a story. Then they might say like, oh, I want to be an influencer. But it's still, dating is not that old. Dating is like, 100 years old, give or take. But what is old is, here we get to the controversial part, women will be opportunists. They will. It is part of our nature to do so. I am not saying it's good. I think there's a lot of things about our particular nature that needs to be kept. What's the right word? What's the right word, you guys? Needs to be kept under control. I didn't want to use the word control because I know that that's sort of a trigger word for a lot of women. And I don't mean that it's like, oh, you're going to be locked in the kitchen, you're going to be chained to the oven. The men of Christendom don't want to do that. They don't want you to be there if you don't want to be there. That's why they're walking away. They don't want to force you to be a real wife. They don't want to force you to bring value to the table. Because that's not value. They can hire a maid. They can hire a cook. They can hire a professional 304. If you don't know what a 304 is, type it into your calculator and turn that calculator upside down. It will read a form of garden utensil. So they can hire those things. They want the woman to want to be there. They want the woman to want to, have some value to bring to the relationship. They want the woman to want to be a real mother. They don't want to force her to be a real mother when she just really wants to put the kids in daycare and go off to her career. They don't want that for the mother of their children. That's why they're walking away. That's why I say share this with your favorite feminists, even if you clip that part and be like, that's why. Because they don't want to force you. Newsflash, you guys. Men could, if that's what they wanted. They have the ability. Have you ever been to the Middle East? Have you ever seen how some cultures treat their women? They are forced. They are controlled, right? The men of Christendom don't want it that way. They were made in their creator's image, and they reflect that outwardly, whether they believe in him or not. They don't want to force someone to love them. They want the choice to be there. They want the women to want to. And the women just don't want to. The women just want to get their bag. They want to be, famous, or they want to be rich, or they want to be, accomplished, whatever that means, because it doesn't mean anything. Your job doesn't care about you. None of those people care about you. They want status. They're not wanting to be wives. They're not wanting to be mothers, in name only, for what it gets them. And just like this, on dates, they just want to get the stuff for them. What are they bringing? What are they bringing to the table? Something pretty to look at? Something semi-interesting to talk to? Maybe some hanky-panky afterwards? What about future? A roommate that you have hanky-panky with? I mean, I think men are like, yeah. No, like, it's really, and then argue with you all the time, and then want to be the boss, because there cannot be two bosses. So if the man's not the boss, it means the woman is. The woman always says, oh, we compromise and we talk. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just manipulate and you want your way. And women aren't happy. They don't want to make the decisions. They don't. And I know you guys are like, well, why do they fight to do it? I don't know. Why do children? That's why we are better when there are just certain cultural norms where women just don't, go have careers. It's, if they're going to be wives and mothers, they just don't do that. It's contradictory. In order to bring value to the man, you can't be another man and behave and think and everything like another little man. It's not valuable to them. And the women don't like that. And that's fine. That's fine. The men aren't forcing them to like it. They're not saying that. They're just saying, I don't want to play anymore. If these are your rules, I don't want to play anymore. And I don't see how anybody can blame them. So Gen Z, stick to your guns. Point out the hypocrisy. You want equal this, equal that, whatever? Then you got to be equal. Stop believing all this reproductive care is more expensive. Insurance covers it. It covers it. And the other thing is reproductive care. Well, nobody said you have to be doing stuff that requires you to need that. That's a luxury of sorts. Not one I agree with, but it's your choice, right? They love the choice. Anyway, you guys, hopefully a lot, and that's what's making a lot of these men go more to the right, because they see these women, they see the contradictions and stuff that all these, blue hair feminist, secret blue hair, all the things that they say and how hypocritical it is. And they're like, no, I think I want what's true. So, thank you guys. Thanks for being here with me. I appreciate you. Please feed your souls today. Protect your peace. Remember that Christ is King and that in the end we win. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one.